this is my activity at this late age to try and help people to think about this very important subject, life and death subject, on the question, when we do war, what in the hell are we doing? I hope I can help some people come to understand that and think about it before they go off to war. It's a good time to ask the question, not only what is war good for, but what is it as an activity? What are we doing when we do war? What are we doing to ourselves when we do war? Or even if we don't go to war, what do we do to ourselves, to our lives, to our sensibilities when we accept war as something that our government can do? Those are the questions I would like to ask. And what is war legally? What is it socially? What is it ethically? And not in an abstract way, but concretely. When we do war, what are we doing as human beings? It's hard to talk about war because you don't like to, people who talk about war usually try to sort of evade this issue, what actually it consists in. You got all kinds of words that we use instead of the direct word war. Combat or operation or contingency. Or sometimes they even call war pacification, making peace. But I would like to start by shouting out the simple, direct essence of war, which we all know about, but we tend not to talk about. That is, war is a time or a situation in which acts which we understand to be despicable in ordinary life are permitted. Acts which we know to be ordinarily despicable are permitted. That's what war essentially is. And when I say permitted, that has three aspects. That is, one is legal, that is to say, the despicable acts that you carry out when you do war don't get you arrested. Soldiers are not arrested for being soldiers, and soldiers who have killed other soldiers on the other side, or some civilians, probably, this will not be called murder. It will be called carrying out the line of duty. So, no, war is in law legal. It is not a crime. And number two is when we say war is legitimate, legitimate war is legitimate, we mean that you can't criticize the people for doing it. not only you can't arrest them, but you ought not to uh, treat them like criminals or horrible people for doing it. Rather, we reward them, we invite them to dinner, we give them medals, we give them we tell them that what they did was honorable and brave and patriotic and so on. And the third aspect is, aside from socially, what you're thought of as by other people or what you're called by other people, uh, aside from that, there's the question is, what does it do to your own uh, consciousness? I probably shouldn't use the word soul or heart, or those are very vague terms. But in your deep consciousness, what happens? Uh, do you, and the answer is supposed to be, you should not feel guilty. You should not be bothered by this. Don't worry about it. The things that you did were horrible, but that doesn't mean you're a horrible person. You're okay. You're a nice guy or occasionally woman. Uh, don't worry about it. Now, the difference between these three, one important difference is the state can take care of number one easily. The state simply does not arrest the people uh, who make war. And if they follow international law, they also do not arrest and punish enemy soldiers who are captured. There are rules that say they can be put in internment camps or prisoner of war camps, but they have to be treated well and fed well and given medical treatment. And when the war is over, they're safely returned to their country. The state can just arrange to do that and do it. And if the state does it, it's done. And as for the second, you should not look at ex-soldiers with horror uh, and say, "Oh my God, that's a murderer." You shouldn't do that. The state can also pretty successfully do that with education and propaganda and the means that the state has to control public opinion. But number three is hard. The state cannot so easily delve into the deep structure of a person's consciousness and alter it one person by person. That's hard to do. So many of the veterans of wars come home and they're happy to get their medals, they're happy to get praise, and they're happy not to get arrested for what they did. And they may sometimes successfully or partially successfully forget what happened out there on the battlefield, but it comes back. It often comes back. And the state has no way to prevent veteran after veteran from having horrible nightmares or panic attacks. Or when you hear a automobile backfire diving for shelter instinctively because it sounds like someone attacking you, and depression and lots of alcoholism to try and forget or to get yourself to sleep, and suicide. Now, I've heard the statistic. Uh, I don't know. I've never confirmed it. I'm not sure if anybody else has either, but it is said that after the Vietnam War, more veterans of the Vietnam War died of suicide than were killed on the battlefield in Vietnam. Now, as I say, that might be an exaggeration, but I certainly many did. Suicide is a big problem among veterans of that war and of every war. Uh, I think that anyone has ever participated in. Uh, it's called PTSD, yeah, post-trauma stress disorder. It used to be called, in the First World War, they called it battle fatigue. Uh, yeah, battle fatigue. And before that, it was called madness. And it is a phenomenon that goes back, it doesn't just appear with modern times, from ancient times. Uh, Veterans of wars have often been a little crazy, or sometimes very crazy. Uh, so this teaches us something about the nature of war. Again, when we do war, what are we doing? What exactly are we doing? When we do it, what are we doing to ourselves? Now, there's one uh, famous sort of answer to this question by it was General Sherman. That is, yes, the William Tecumseh Sherman, the famous general of the Civil War, who the fellow who burned Atlanta and made a march from Atlanta to the Atlantic Ocean, leaving a swath of destruction uh, where his troops walked through, burning houses and burning crops. Uh, After the war, he coined the very famous expression, war is hell. And I want to ask uh, ask you to think, what did he mean when he said war is hell? Uh, of course, when we hear that, the first thing we think is, yeah, war is as hellish, as painful, as terrifying, as horrific as hell is. It's a place where many, many, many people get killed or maimed, or tortured, uh, terrified. It's an awful experience. It does mean that, but it also has another meaning. When Sherman said war is hell, it was to the Michigan, it was to the boys, the cadets at the Michigan uh, Military Academy. He said, boys, there's some of you who think of war as a glorious adventure, but I tell you, and I'm telling you now, I look on war with horror. But he didn't stop there. He said, but if it has to come, I'm there. So he acknowledges that war is a horror, and people do part of the horror is the despicable acts that you have to do, not only the ones that are done to you. Both of those are despicable and horrible and horrifying. But if there's a war, I'll go. And he expects people to think of that will to go there as virtuous, as ethically respectable, admirable, maybe even heroic, to face that danger. So war has this dual meaning. It's horrible, but doing it is honorable and the thing that a good person should agree to do. And this contradiction, if you think about it, it's like an oxymoron, I guess they pronounce it, a self-contradictory statement, legitimate violence, legitimate illegitimacy. What does that do to our consciousness when we accept that as a very common practice? If you think of the expression, war is hell, and take it seriously, look at it a little more deeply, you see another aspect. There's the question, what do war and hell have in common? That is the horror of it. But what do they have? Another thing they have in common is that each of them is authorized by the highest moral authority in the sphere that activity takes place in. That's a little abstract, but what I mean is, in the case of hell, hell is authorized by God. Now, let me back up. I'm not a great believer in hell or God, either one, but I think of them as something created by the very productive human imagination in order to express something. But as we imagine hell, as we imagine hell, we imagine it as part of God's plan. It's the place where sinners, which I take to mean people like you and me, ordinary people who are doing what the religious people call sins all the time, are punished for that. And so it's it's created. The whole thing is created by God, according to the theologians, and authorized. So it's the highest, and that's the highest authority that exists within that realm of thought, which is religion. Religion, not all religions have hells or gods that do that, but many of them do, including all the ones born out of the Old Testament. In the case of the state, in the case of war, war is authorized, legalized, and done by the highest legal authority in the secular realm, which is the state the state produces the highest law that there is, or organizations of groups of states, the United Nations. But the state is the one authority that can enforce law. And so it's, you can't appeal it to something higher unless it's your own conscience, I guess. But the difference is, in the case of, yeah, and this is a big difference, in the case of hell, God, as I said, as we imagine it, created hell, but and authorized all those horrible things that happens there that you read about in Dante and Milton, or in lots of other writings. God is depicted as a nice guy, a nice fellow. That's understated, I know, intentionally. He's goodness itself, the origin of all goodness. He is incapable of carrying out those punishments himself. He can't do it. It's against it. They say God can do anything, but according to the theologian, he can't do that and won't. And so somebody else has to do that. And that's a problem. So to solve that problem, God created beings for whom that work is appropriate. And those are the demons and the devils and the fiends who carry out the punishments of hell. And since they're evil to the core, they don't feel guilt. They don't have bad dreams. They giggle and laugh while they do it. They enjoy it. It's having a terrific time. They're very grateful to have such interesting work assigned to them. They're having a ball. But in the case of war, we ain't got no demon battalion. We haven't got any organized demon squad to do the work of war. We got to do it ourselves. Just ordinary people like you and me are the ones that have to do the work that in hell is done by fiends, fiendish work. And one of the things I want to talk about is human beings aren't really cut out for that. I know you read the newspaper and lots of human beings do things worthy of fiends and devils, and in wars especially. But I still insist, and I think I can persuade you to agree that we're not really cut out for that. I suspect that most of the people watching this, if there is in fact anybody watching it, has ever killed anybody. I never have. I don't know any. Well, no, that's not true. I do know people who have killed people, and those are my friends in Veterans for Peace, guys who've been to the front and have nightmares and PTSD. I know those people, but ordinarily in our daily lives, we can get angry with people. We have terrible fights and quarrels, but we don't kill people for that. Not very often. Uh, and you can say, well, that's because we'd get arrested. But you ask yourself carefully, is that really true about me? That the only reason I'm not killing you to steal your wallet is because I might get arrested for it? Is that all there is to it? Am I really that kind of a being? And I think you'll say, actually, no. And it's a fact that when people are sent to war, uh, if they don't get some kind of special training before they're sent out there, if you just take a bunch of kids uh, right out of high school, hand them guns and put uniforms on them and send them to a battlefield and say, shoot those people over there on the other side of the field, uh, a whole lot of them, maybe most of them, won't do it. So it's actually a problem, considered a problem by uh, military people, that lots and lots of the people that they recruited to shoot those other people over there on the other side of the field aim for the sky or aim for the dirt or aim left to the right of the person in their sights or don't pull the trigger. There's a resistance. You just don't do it. Now, if you don't believe that, uh, the right person to ask about whether that's a fact is a Marine Corps drill instructor. The guys who in boot camp uh, train young people, mostly just out of high school, to become capable of war. There's a lot of things that is taught in boot camp and other military. There's a lot of instruction, especially now. There's so many complicated machines that require trained people to use them, not just rifles and pistols and hand grenades like World War II. There are all sorts of computerized gadgets and stuff. So there's a lot of technical training. But in between the technical training, how to use all this crazy equipment, there's something that's not written in the manual, in the training manuals, because that would be bad publicity, but is handed down from generation to generation among drill instructors. Drill instructors are uh, very articulate, very smart. Uh, they have a lot of psychological knowledge, and they know how to take an innocent high school graduate and make him, usually him, into a person capable of killing another. And they use uh, all sorts of tricks, but mostly uh, training people to see others as inferior and as like animals. You call them animals, you call them all sorts of racist names. In World War II, in the Pacific, it was Japs and Gooks and Dinks and I don't know what the terms they use now. I hear what do you call it? Sand niggers and camel fuckers and also all sorts of ragheads uh, for people in the Middle East. Uh, and there are many other tricks. I'll talk about that in a later session more. But anyway, what the DI's know is that this new batch of high school graduates that just came under their jurisdiction, uh, even the tough guys, and the ones who think they were tough, members of gangs or good with knife fighting, maybe, even those guys still have to be changed before they can be sent to the battlefield. Uh, and that they're the ones who know best that ordinary people uh, are just not quite qualified to do the work of war, to act like demons and fiends. They're just not good at it. Now, I'll get to the punchline. If you stuck with me this far, I'll tell you my name and what the hell I'm doing here. Uh, I'm Douglas Lummis. I am the ex-Marine mentioned in the title of this series. I was a Marine. I've never been into combat. I lucked out, I guess I'd have to say. There was no combat in the 3 years that I spent on active duty. I did 3 years active duty and 7 years in the reserves. So that's up to 10 years. So I have a little qualification to talk about uh, war and what at least the training for war teaches us. Uh, and I've been, after I was discharged, uh, I had a change of heart. Well, that was actually going on while I was in the Marines. Didn't think it was quite so gloriously exciting as I thought it would be when I was in high school. And I've been thinking all my life since then, worrying about war and what the hell it is. And that's a long time. I'm 88 now. And last year, I came out with a book that's sort of the result of uh, thinking about that and teaching about these things in college also, which is the work I did before I was retired. And last year I came out with a book with the very title borrowed from General Sherman, War is Hell, and with the subtitle Studies in the Right of Legitimate Violence. And now you think I'm going to try to sell you a book. I'm not. If you feel like buying this book, uh, don't go to the bookstore, go to the library and ask them to buy it because it's, I'm sorry to say, a little bit expensive. I apologize to the publisher for saying that, but it's you can either read it in the library or near where you're living. If there's a bookshelf that has chairs where you can sit and read, uh, go there and take it off the shelf and read it and put it back, and it won't cost you a cent. But what I'd like to do here is, if you don't necessarily want the book, I want to do this series, uh, sort of going through the book chapter by chapter and talking about some of the main points. Hopefully, if it works out, uh, you won't have to buy the book. You'll get the general idea. But this is my activity at this late age to try and help people to think about this very important subject, life and death subject, on the question, when we do war, to repeat what I said before, when we do war, what in the hell are we doing? I hope I can help some people come to understand that and think about it before they go off to war. Okay, that's enough for today. I'll see you next time, I hope.